Thanks for tuning into this episode where I sit down with the outgoing director of the SVED, Sun Valley Economic Development. Harry and I sat down for about 35 minutes, and wouldn't you know it, I ran out of storage on the device. Not that anyone's going to make it the full 35 minutes, but there will be a part 2 to this. The incoming director will sit down with me later this year, and we will pick up where Harry and I left off. I hope you enjoy the episode. Harry Griffith, thank you for sitting down with me today. Still current ED of the Sun Valley Economic Development, SVED, as we call it locally.
Yep.
Appreciate the time today. So give me a little background real quick before we dive into the questions we're going to get to. How did you wind up in Sun Valley? How long have you been here? Why is Sun Valley home to you?
So the answer to that is sort of manifold. One, I worked overseas for a 25-year career and was always looking for a base in a resort community in a mountain town. And we visited a number of mountain towns and came here for the Directors Cup in 1997.
Okay.
And had a great time, came back the next year. My wife got tired of racing and went out and found some property. So we used that as a base while we were overseas, built a house, and that became our sort of remote home.
Yeah.
So that worked out really well. And then in 2008, 2009, we got kicked out of Russia.
Okay.
Bit of a shareholder dispute.
Okay.
And landed here, and I worked for a couple of months commuting to Houston, and then decided that that wasn't for me, and then started in this economic development job, which I've been doing for 15 years now.
Excellent. Awesome. Well, I'm excited to kind of get into some of the topics you and I discussed on the phone, and you've said it in office meetings with us. And I think that, not that we're going to get super analytical on the data, but it is very interesting, the trends and things like that. So let's just dive in here. Let's talk about the lifestyle of Sun Valley, right? So post-COVID, during COVID, there was a pretty big shift on who was moving to Sun Valley. Why do you think Sun Valley remains a premier destination for talent and capital, despite some of the challenges we have with housing, rising costs, and low inventory?
Yeah, I think there's actually two phases of people moving here. I think there was the first phase, what I call sort of COVID plus two, where you had a lot of people that had the capability to sort of make an immediate move. And we saw a lot of remote workers coming here, a lot of people that had some tie here, maybe had family members here. Maybe there was a second home that they were able to get access to. So there was that period that was, I think, great for the economy, and the people really certainly enjoyed that. But then I think since then, over the last year and a half, 2 years, and I think going forward for a few more years, we've seen what I call, sort of a wealthier achiever kind of status. People that, are maybe a little bit older than the remote workers. So they're kind of in their late 30s, 40s, early 50s. They've done very well elsewhere. They see this as an opportunity to get out of the rat race a little bit. Maybe to keep working, maybe not to keep working. But they also tend to come with family and a little bit more wealth. Yeah. So a lot of them have been building houses. They might have started during that COVID plus two phase.
Right.
But, they're now starting to settle and integrate into the community.
Yeah.
And now they come here because of the schools. They come here because of the recreation. They come here because of the outdoor stuff. I think they come here because it's safe. And in today's world, there are less safe places and more safe places. And I think we are in the lucky side of that equation.
Yeah. Sun Valley is definitely the spot you can leave a door unlocked and a key in the car, and you feel pretty good about it. So do you think, I talked to the school district just had an issue with that levy, and they're going to be reducing some staffing and things like that. So just to tie into that growth that we're seeing with some people, but lack of kids kind of showing up, do you think is there a tie to that group of people you're talking about, and the Blaine County school districts kind of drop in enrollment rates?
So the main drop in enrollment rate that was talked about recently was kind of like, where people are coming in first grade, I think, and where how many there are at the back end. And there's a gap there of, I want to say around 100 from memory, from the numbers.
I think it was about that, yeah.
I think that the people that I'm referring to that kind of came here with kids, they had kids that were already in 5th grade, 6th grade, 8th grade. They were sort of in that
more
sort
established there.
Yeah, and also the range where you can change a school for a kid without, a sort of a tragic outcome.
Yeah.
So I think we saw a lot of people that, and it's not just the school district per se. It's this age school, it's community school.
Yeah.
It's Silver Creek. It's a whole variety of different options for education, and we see that as well, not just in the schools but also in the clubs. So Ski Education Foundation, or the soccer clubs or lacrosse. So I think there's more of a kind of a middle-aged demographic that's got kids that have made a lifestyle decision, and today that works. I mean, if you look at this 10 years ago, before COVID and before remote working became kind of passe, and never would have happened.
Yeah.
So this is a real sort of a seminal change in demographics, I think.
Yeah. Do you think that there is that big call back to work that you're seeing from the big companies in the larger cities? I think, like you said, that definitely during that COVID period, it worked really well. But I coach my kids' hockey team.
Right.
So anecdotally, you're seeing that. My son's involved with lacrosse. You have seen some families who were here, and I think they thought they were here for the long term. There has been some work pressure put on them to kind of relocate back home and
but when you look, so there's some factoids out there. The Hoover Institute and the University of Chicago do a work from home study. They've been doing it now for about 5 or 6 years, and the latest version of that, and from memory, some statistics, something like it was during COVID, post-COVID, there was about 60% of people were working from home on average across the U.S. That number's gone down, but it's still around 45% of people that work less than 3 days in the office.
Okay.
So that work from home component still is strong. Now, it varies company by company.
Yeah.
And it varies, across the demographic, but there's still a very strong element of that. So I think that contraction has occurred.
Yeah.
We're still seeing some people that came here in the first wave go back because they're being called back. But companies recognize that, in the right circumstance for the right person, that's an entirely acceptable way of working going forward.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it's definitely an interesting time that last 5 years. So I think that leads us to our next thing. So kind of your perspective, looking back at the past 15 years. So you've got the Great Recession. When did SVED start? When did you?
So we started, our organization was founded in 2009.
Okay.
It was grassroots. I was first executive director.
Okay.
And it was the result of a countywide study that realized that we needed to have some sort of centralized economic development agency.
Yeah.
And some other conclusions, which I think, I won't go into. So, at that point in time, people were getting nervous. We didn't really hit the bottom until kind of 2010, 2011.
Yeah.
In terms of employment, total wages in the community, real estate prices, et cetera.
Yeah, real estate prices kind of 2011, 2012.
So people were starting to be fearful when we first started up. I think that the concern about the economy grew, and that was part of the reason why people felt comfortable saying, yeah, we need an economic development agency to help bring businesses here or help retain businesses that we want to keep in the community. So since then, things have, economy's improved. All the numbers are up. You can look at our economic profiles online and see, how that change has occurred over time. But, you get to a point where people start to think that maybe we don't need economic development. Maybe we've had enough. Maybe there's too many people here. Maybe I have to sit in traffic.
Turn the valve off.
Sit in traffic too long. And it's not sort of hot or cold.
Yeah.
You got to be, in the economy, you've got to be kind of lukewarm because you're always playing ahead. So yes, maybe we need to change our marketing in terms of tourism. And we did that. And Business Sun Valley over many years, has sort of modified their message to try to get the right people in the right place at the right time.
Yeah.
Our seasonality is filled in. There's a little less pressure on businesses in general to fill that gap shoulder in the spring and late fall. But there is still some rough sailing ahead. I think now with the economy, with some of the pressures on pricing, pressures on housing costs, pressures on a number of different issues, we're starting to see we're not going to see a repeat of the Great Recession. I hope not.
Right.
But we are seeing pressure in the workforce, and that turns into pressure on people and their families and their lives and their livelihood.
Yeah. How has the economy from the time SVED started to today, like what has that evolution been like? What were the vulnerabilities that we had at that time? Have those softened, and have we gotten stronger in some regards and maybe weaker in others? That remote worker coming in with the higher wage and income, there's been some displacement locally with families and incomes.
Right.
How has that? What is the evolution of that economy locally? Like, where are we today?
So there's a lot of dimensions to that question. I do want to come back to the issue of some viewpoints that are out on the street about remote workers increasing overall household incomes and increasing housing prices and lack of rentals and things like that.
Sure.
When you look at that first crop of remote workers, a lot of them were early employees with companies that had that flexibility. It wasn't people that were making hundreds of thousands of dollars a year with stock options.
Yeah.
A lot of them were here, but a lot of them had two jobs, and a lot of them were struggling to make ends meet. So when you talk about, the Remote Workers Collective, which is, I think, a representative of a cross section of some of those early workers here, they struggle with making it work in this economy as well, even though they're getting, a solid paycheck from offshore,
sure,
so to speak. That changed a little bit with what I called the wealthier group of people that have come here since. That obviously has translated into pressure on housing prices, and we've all seen what's going on in terms of numbers of sales, volumes of sales, median prices, et cetera, across the valley. So there's no question that has put a lot of pressure on the community. I think another dimension in your question comes down to the key issue actually has not changed in this community. Our key issue is, I don't call it housing, I call it access to talent. So it's getting the right person for your business at the right time, at the right price, with the right skills.
Right.
There are a lot of dimensions to that. Now, one critical dimension of that is housing. Okay, so if you're a midstream retailer, where are you going to get somebody who's willing to work the 8 hours a day at an hourly wage, which is probably in the high mid 20 to kind of mid 30 range.
Yeah.
You look at housing prices around here.
Yeah.
That doesn't buy you much.
No.
Without having to sort of commit 60, 70, 80% of your income to housing.
Right.
So that talent issue translates into, that's one dimension, housing. Talent issue also translates into what skills you need. I mean, again, there's not always, we have a certain range of businesses and certain expectations in terms of service levels as a resort community.
Right.
Getting that talent, whether it's in the back of house in a restaurant or in the front counter, isn't necessarily easy because you have a limited labor pool to a certain extent in this marketplace. I mean, our labor pool is a bit expanded because we have the drive opportunity, from south,
right,
from Twin and Jerome and those areas, and we certainly get a lot of commuting traffic.
We do,
to help fill those gaps. But one thing that has changed over the last couple of years is that immediately post-recession, people were paying a premium up here for wages. So the same job in Twin, was probably $2, $3 less an hour.
Yeah.
Those people commuted up here.
Yeah.
For about 4 or 5 years. Then Twin started going gangbusters.
It did.
And that wage differential switched, and you could actually get more money working in Twin Falls or Jerome.
Yeah.
For a period of about 3 or 4 years. Well, now it's kind of swung back again,
Mm-hmm.
and we now offer a premium, and we're getting more people coming into the communities. But in spite of that, we have a limited labor pool. It's not like people are, yes, some people commute from Boise on a regular basis, but that's not really feasible. So we don't have this massive metropolitan area
Right.
behind us like you do in some of the Colorado ski resorts, like
Park
Summit,
City,
Park City.
Salt Lake.
Yeah. So, we remain a bit of an isolated destination market, and that makes it difficult to get talent here because this is not for everybody.
Right.
I mean, as a realtor, you brought people in, they fell in love with the place.
Yeah.
And then a year and a half, 2 years later, they fell out of love because it's too cold or it's too parochial
isolating or
whatever the case may be.
Yeah. So with that in mind, knowing that we do have a limited labor pool, this will get into the next question, that kind of 3, 5, 10-year thing. Where do you see life in Sun Valley from an economic business standpoint in 3 years?
So I think the starting point to answer that question is to say, what assets do we have? And when I say assets, I'm talking about physical assets, structures, infrastructure, connectivity. We're also talking about the types of people that we have here. We talk about the history of business and what's actually transpired in this community over the years.
Yeah.
And I like to think about what's our DNA as a community. And our DNA, you can look at it a little bit more holistically on a longer time cycle and think about it as, okay, we started as a mining community, and then we moved into sheep herding.
Yeah.
And then we moved into sort of tourism, I think, in general, with the foundation of the ski resort and activities in the mid-1900s. And then tourism, of course, has evolved as well. Tourism back then isn't what tourism is now. So we have, around that sort of cycle of change, we've built up a certain level of expertise and belief in what I would broadly call the outdoors. And I can crudely call it outdoor, or more specifically call it outdoor recreation. And you look, back, mining's long gone. Sheep activities are still happening, in the peripheries of the county. We've got some good agricultural stuff going on. But at the end of the day, I think it's the outdoor recreation DNA that's most important. And I like to talk about the fact that, we had kind of 3 progenitors of that DNA genealogy. Scott USA started in 1958. We had Warren Miller Entertainment started in 1949. And we had Smith Sports started in 1965.
Yeah.
A lot of people forget how old these businesses were. They've been around for decades and decades and decades.
I didn't realize that Scott goes back to the 50s.
Yeah. So the critical thing on that, though, is that out of each of those 3 sort of forebearers, a whole series of businesses have been founded in the community. And I'll just run through a list. The Scott USA example, I think about some of these are still here and some of them aren't.
Right.
And there's more that probably come on the list since I put this together.
Sure.
But, you go through Scott, and out of that you had, when I say born out of that, it was either a person who worked for the original company or a concept or a product or an innovation generated, the chain of siblings.
Yeah.
After that.
Spawn off of that.
The spawn off of that,
Yeah.
right. So, you had Mobius Technology, you have Crank Tank still here, you have Chums, everybody knows them. Reflex Poles, they made a comeback.
Okay.
You have Game Face, Sun Valley Ski Tools, Research Dynamics, the Ski, PRE. Who remembers the PRE skis? The little square color blocks on those. Rut Apparel, Powder Magazine, Snug Sport. So a lot of DNA in this community, again, from those sort of foundation businesses.
Yeah.
Warren Miller Productions, Dick Barrymore Productions, TGR, Teton Gravity Research. Actually, they kind of had some birth here, and people from here went to sort of grow that business. Diamond Sun Productions, Dark Delight Productions, Stella Adventure Media, Carson Entertainment, dog shows.
Yeah.
Stump Productions. So again, a lot of history,
yeah,
but a lot of it back to the DNA, and a lot of that DNA ultimately is about marketing. And I use marketing in a very large sense. It's branding, it's product development, it's research, it's understanding consumers, and trying to come up with, something that could be done better and provide better experiences and opportunities in the outdoors.
Yeah. Yeah. So some of these companies that you've named off, they were, born out of that. Some have been here, some have left. That probably just goes back to some of the challenges that we've talked about before in regards to.
I can tell you for a fact. I mean, I didn't talk about Smith, but with Smith, you've got a lot of companies that are still very successful, but they're not here because they can't make it work here.
Right.
ESS, is gone.
Yeah.
We have Blitz, now in Minnesota. We have Icebreaker. We have a number of different, Oakley tied with ESS.
Right.
So a lot of businesses came here. They grew, they got big, they got recognized, and they basically went international with some sort of a purchase, merger,
right.
Expansion that they didn't feel they could do here.
Right.
And a lot of the people that worked for those companies stuck around.
They did.
So they're starting up the new things, and hopefully the next wave of companies that, again, so we kind of start these early phase things.
Mm-hmm.
We take them through the middle phase, and then they graduate and move away from home. But maybe they'll come back.
It's like a college kid,
Yeah.
Go spread your wings and come back home, young man.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so that's in the near term. So if you look at the 5 years, so we can sort of touch on, I think with 5-year planning, the infrastructure piece. Housing comes into this. Every city's and counties working with affordable housing and how to increase that sector of our market to make pricing more affordable. You've got the highway work that's taken place this last summer that will continue into next summer. Bellevue's growth with several new planned subdivisions and the infrastructure issues that they're running into with water and sewer.
Right.
Where are we in 2030? Do those projects, are we?
So 2030 is the 5-year look. I think that, you mentioned a couple of things. From a transportation standpoint, I think we're in a really good place.
Mm-hmm.
The Fly-Some Valley Alliance has done a great job, I think, expanding air options.
Mm-hmm.
We're seeing more interest. American just came into the marketplace.
Saw that, yeah.
So, we've gone from, come back to the dark days of post-recession, 2010. I think we had like 3 routes.
Yeah.
We had Salt Lake, Seattle, and
Los Angeles or whatever.
Either Los Angeles or San Francisco.
Yeah.
And now we've got, many, many more, and more flexibility and more variety.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's one big tick on the transport side. The other tick is what's going on now with the roads and the expansion.
Yeah.
I think, a lot of deferred investment for 20, 25 years.
Yeah.
On the state highway, but also on the secondary roads. Those are now getting put into play and fixed. Our public transit system is great. Mountain Rides is a world-class organization.
For as small as we are, the fact that we have that is a pretty incredible.
We can always do more.
Yeah.
Should we have a circulator, for instance?
Sure. Which they've attempted. They've done that.
And then, parking always has been an issue
Yeah.
in a small town that's surrounded by, steep valleys and
Right.
Avalanche zones and so forth.
Right.
So, there's still work that can be done in that.
Mm-hmm.
But I feel pretty comfortable about the transportation capabilities for the community. Housing, though, was a problem 20 years ago. Problem when I started working here, and still remains a problem.
Yeah.
And I think we are seeing a lot of progress to try to address those issues. I'm particularly excited about some of the development in multifamily
Mm-hmm.
options, which have been, there was a period when you look back at the multifamily build cycle back in the kind of early 90s, quite a bit went in. It was Woodside Developments.
Right.
And we added a lot of units in that space. And it took
time.
time.
Balmoral and things like
that.
Yeah,
yeah. And it took time for those units to be absorbed, actually.
Okay.
I'm hoping we're not moving into another cycle of, underabsorbed units.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the challenge the community has, is to build so that, a developer, can reliably rent his home to a worker and, can actually, make some money on it in terms of his price point. But, that's got to be very carefully managed by the collective community. We have a lot of efforts going on that are not unilateral, but they tend to be focused. So, I mean, obviously Ketchum is got a big set of projects and elements and approaches they're taking on housing. And that's great because they are the biggest employer and the heart of the tourism industry. We're starting to see developments further down south. Haley's done a wonderful job, I think, filling in with apartments in particular.
Yeah, River Street's completely changed, and the density there is...
Quigley, as a new development, is working well. Some stuff down in Bellevue that Steadfast Properties might be working on. So there is activity. I think the question kind of comes back to what are some of the constraints in that activity. I think one constraint is, don't overbuild it. Okay, make sure that you've got absorption. And then the other constraint is infrastructure, water, sewer, electrical, and other things of that nature. I don't think we have constraints in our recreational assets. I don't think we have constraints in our cultural assets. But I think we do need to work on thinking about how we build smarter. One of the things that I worry about in kind of the 5-year time frame actually is fire risk. The urban wildfire interface is quite close. We've had a couple of close calls in the past.
Yeah.
We've never, we lost, I think, one structure in 2 major fires.
Right.
Which is great. But, those risks can keep increasing. Hopefully a good snow up high this winter. So we'll have, good release of water.
Mm-hmm.
But, insurers see Ketchum in the same light that they see the Palisades.
Right.
You're in the mountains, you're in high desert terrain or scrub terrain.
Yeah.
And your fire risks are, really high. So we're seeing a lot of selective pressure from different insurers on covering those wildfire risks, whether it's commercial operations or residential operations.
Yeah.
And that, of course, translates into, okay, if you can't get insurance easily or it's very expensive, you just raise the price of housing. So it's kind of a double-edged sword,
right?
In that sense. Now we are seeing activities and things happening in the community in some of the cities, Sun Valley City in particular, where they're talking. They've got a new landscaping plan on the books in terms of ordinances.
Mm-hmm.
They've got a home hardening ordinance which just passed. So we're starting to see some motion there. Blaine County, the emergency coordination team is working very closely with the fire departments in terms of making sure that our community is as resilient as possible, that we know where our risks are and we can take steps to close those things. And there's some grants and things like that. But I do think that, when we see, materials, land prices increasing, materials increasing, labor costs increasing.
Yeah. Insurance costs.
Insurance costs are right there, the next wave, to cause problems with the ability of this community to continue to provide housing for a wide spectrum of demographics.
Yeah. So you said the build smarter thing. Can you go a little deeper on that piece?
So build smart. I mean, it's actually home hardening in a sense.
Okay.
So it's things like fireproof vents in your roofs so that embers can't go in.
Okay.
And a perimeter around your location. No, you guys fail on that. That is hardscape,
right?
Non-flammable. A whole bunch of different things like that. Using more. I can't tell you how many new homes I've seen go up with wood siding.
Yeah.
Which just drives me crazy. But all the roofs now are metal or fire resistant, because that's like a basic requirement. You don't get any insurance unless you do something there.
Right.
So we're starting to see some of that. And that, I think, is an important element of our future, is to continue to do those things, do the projects we're doing on the mountain. The Bald Mountain Health Project has been fantastic. They've done probably an average of 60 acres a year for the last 10 years.
Yeah.
Removed a lot of fire risk from the mountain.
Yeah.
And, we hope to see that sort of activity replicated, in other areas across the community.
Okay.
As well. Right.
Now that takes us to 10 years out. What's the future of our economy look like, 2036?
Well, some people say, won't we be fully diversified by then? And I don't think we will be. I'm a big, I do a lot of numbers, and I look at sort of tourism versus non-tourism industries, and I look at where the dollars are, and I look at why people come here. And we're always going to be a tourism-dominated economy.
Yeah.
But if we can, use some of these smaller startups that came out of our recreational DNA to create more diverse, location-neutral jobs, I think that's a great thing, and I think we'll hopefully continue to see that activity. The other thing I worry about a little bit in the longer term is, as a resort community, we have a lot of big second home vacation homes, 4,000, 5,000, 10,000 square feet. And there's a lot of these things around, particularly North Valley, and north of Ketchum and Sun Valley and Blaine County. My question really is, and this gets back to the changing demographics and the next set of generations.
Yeah.
A lot of families, in those homes, our demographic is aging. Median age is 5 or 10 years older than in Boise, or maybe 15 years older than in Twin.
Yeah.
So if you got a family that's had a generational home for 20 years, 30 years, and the kids either can't afford it, don't want it,
right?
Sun
Valley was my parents' place.
Feel guilty about it, whatever the case may be.
Sure.
How do you repurpose those homes? And there's a lot of them.
Yeah.
So do you bring in more? Now, what used to be millionaires, now you bring in billionaires.
Sure.
Or do you do something different? Do you restructure those properties? Do you subdivide the lots? What do you do with that? And that's that's the thing that keeps me up at night, actually, is what 10 years out or 15 years out.
Yeah.
How many of those homes that are contributing to the community? Don't get me wrong. I feel very strongly, they're paying utilities, they're paying taxes, they're paying landscaping services.
Yeah.
They're probably doing a remodel every, 5 to 10 years.
Yeah.
The people, when they do come here for, a week or a month or 6 months, they're contributing to the community.
Yeah.
They're part of the charitable
property
framework that we have here.
I doubt that they do, donate to nonprofits and things like that.
So when that all changes, what does that do to the state of the economy?
Yeah.
That's what I worry about. I think that's what keeps me up.
So if you had to go dark on that, what does that look like? Like what about that keeps you up at night?
I think we move more towards a model of homes that are not just second homes or third homes or fourth homes.
So they get further and further removed.
So prices keep going up, and we get further removed from the man on the street.
Yeah.
And living here and making a living here.
Okay.
That gets challenging.
What's the silver lining if everything were to play out?
Silver lining is it's still a wonderful place to come and recreate, a wonderful place to come and take a vacation.
Yeah.
A great place to come and have a business conference. So I think we will retain that. I also think the silver lining for us was some of the things that our community leaders did over the last 25 to or so years, with the hillside ordinances and restricting rampant development.
Yeah.
And, we are, as everybody would say, kind of, 10 years behind the Aspens and the Jacksons and everything else. We're seeing things that are, modern developments, a new hotel, for instance, but we're still underbedded in terms of a resort community. You know, we only have approximately 7,000 pillows in this community, roughly split between hotel and short-term rentals.
Okay.
So that market is underserved. We actually had more hotel rooms in 1998 than we do now, even with the new hotel in Ketchum coming in.
That would probably surprise most people.
Yeah, it would surprise most people.
Yeah.
Like by 100 plus beds.
Really?
Yeah.
So do we just have more like mom and pop independent establishments?
No, we had think about it. It's the Elkhorn Village hotel closed, and the village over at Christiana converted.
Yeah.
So we lost significant properties.
Yeah. And the recession hit so hard, we didn't have good development there for a while.
So at the end of the day, you know, I think that our future is tourism driven. I think that it's important that people embrace tourism as a resident, a second homeowner, a business person. And that doesn't mean that you're like everybody that's coming, or every car that's driving down the street, or every skier that you encounter on the mountain.
Yeah.
But I do believe that in our DNA is because we're a little bit further away, because we're a little bit less glitzy, a little bit more authentic.
We are that. We
are bringing more or less the right kind of people here.
Yeah.
And I like to talk about the conversion. I call it the conversion triangle. But if you imagine a triangle like this, where at the bottom you have you know, a sort of first-time visitor. You know, we get whatever 300,000 of those, and then you step up in the triangle, and then you get somebody who becomes a repeat visitor, and then you step up and you get, you know, a second homeowner, and then you get a full-time resident, and then, you know, maybe you get, so you start at the bottom, which is maybe, you know, 200,000 bodies, and you get to the top and you have, like, you know, a family.
Yeah.
That sort of makes that conversion.
Yeah, you need a big base.
So you got to work through that.
Yeah.
That's sort of the right people.
With it's an Aspen, it's a Vail, it's a Jackson kind of mindset.